Hey there, welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I am Sam Oches, editor-in-chief here at NRN, and this is the show where I give you an all-access pass to the restaurant industry's most influential decision makers. This week, I'm talking with Julie Mountain and Dana Noorily, the co-founders of the Granola Bar, a breakfast and lunch modern diner concept with 8 locations across Connecticut and New York. These longtime friends initially started a granola business out of one of their kitchens in 2010. And in 2013, they opened their first restaurant essentially just to give them a commercial kitchen for manufacturing granola. But customers in their Westport, Connecticut hometown had different plans, making that restaurant so popular that Julie and Dana abandoned the granola business and became full-time restaurateurs. They joined the podcast to share the lessons they've learned on their entrepreneurial journey and how they've fallen forward into a business that has financial partners and a new CEO who are helping to steer its slow but steady growth. In this interview, you will learn more about why the business you start is not always the business you'll grow, how you can know what you don't know via strategic hires, and why sometimes real estate can dictate your entrepreneurial drive. Jumping now into my interview with the Granola Bar's Julie Mountain and Dana Noorily. Note that Julie is the first to speak, just to give you some clarity on voices. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview, as I will share my 6 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I'm sitting down with Julie Mountain and Dana Noorily, the co-founders of the Granola Bar. Dana and Julie, thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
All right, we're going to talk about all things the Granola Bar. But to start things off, for those who are not familiar, what's the kind of 30-second pitch on what this concept is all about?
30 seconds. You're good at that.
Well, we're an all-day modern diner. We're actually, our history is that we're 7A to 4P. In some of our locations, we are in fact all day. But we're really a modern diner, an elevated idea of breakfast and lunch. We felt, how am I doing on timing? We felt that people were giving such elevated, wonderful experiences to dinner. And when we moved out from the city to the suburbs, we just felt like that was missing for brekkie.
Little white space.
Sure. No, it makes a lot of sense. So then let's do the history then. Okay. When did the Granola Bar start? Were you guys, let's go further back. When did you guys meet? Are you guys friends originally or just business partners?
We met, it's now going on 15 years because we just turned the clock to 2025 and we met in 2010. We both moved to Westport from the city separately in 2008. We had small children. We met at a kid's birthday party. Our daughters were seated next to one another. They're now seniors in high school, just to give you the time pitch there.
And cue middle-aged trying.
Yeah, a little cute empty nesting. So we started a conversation which led to a granola business, funny enough. At first, Julie approached me with the idea of making like a high-end giftable granola. And as I always tell everyone, because this joke is so old, but I was low-hanging fruit.
15 years old.
Yeah, it's 15 years old. I was low-hanging fruit. So I jumped right on that bandwagon and we started making granola illegally in her kitchen.
Nice.
For a hot minute. Don't worry. And then,
it's okay if the cops know about that now, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
statute of limitations. Yeah. And then we started building a business, and lo and behold, we were not making a lot of money. We weren't losing money. And so we were complaining to a mentor about our business model. And he suggested that we open a kitchen in Westport where we were living at the time. We're still living now. And that became the original Granola Bar circa 2013. It opened December 7, 2013.
And that's why it's called the Granola Bar. The intention was to have a manufacturing facility for the granola business that we had built from 2011 to 2012. When we started to build it, we thought, let's take our manufacturing back. To what Dana said. So when you put 30-something moms together in a kitchen and say you'll have a front of house, and then we say, what's a front of house? The mentor rolls his eyes and goes, oh gosh, sent us a P&L for what a restaurant P&L looks like. We had no idea what we were looking at. Our histories are different. I was in the music business in the city. Dana was in finance. And we then did that move to the suburbs, had kids, and here we were. So we had built up enough of a granola business that we knew that the manufacturing alone would pay rent in this suburban model. And then when he said, build out a front of house, and we learned what that meant.
Then the pendulum swung over here.
Right. We all of a sudden got together in the kitchen with our kids running around and our husbands. And we're like, what do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? And we created a menu really selfishly for the customers that we always were, because we were not restaurateurs.
We were consumers.
We were entered this as consumers, naive consumers. And I think we can come back to that, but I think that's at the core of what has made our business successful.
And so granola obviously was your first product and how you guys started this thing, but then you get into food service. And I mean, there's really no model for what granola in food service looks like. So you had to expand the menu, right? Was that the first thing you thought about?
Well, yeah. I mean,
we found ways to utilize the granola in our menu with a granola bowl and a yogurt parfait. And, Julie had been in the city and she came back and she said, oh my God, I just had the most delicious avocado toast. I'm like, what's avocado toast?
In 2012, it was just at hotels in the city for $22 and they were putting on, chili flake. So yeah, we created granola, but as the hero of the menu. So we created a Cobb salad that had a maple bacon granola on it, a chicken salad sandwich that had vanilla almond granola inside of it. So we really saw them actually as separate ideas, right? There was this CPG company that we had created for granola, but then we had this front of house that we were just going to play with. We never imagined we were going to create 8, 9, or 10 restaurants in the future. We just thought we were going to be working, we'd have ourselves an expensive job, and we would create granola. And then the hero of the menu was granola, but it was a wholly different kind of cafe.
And did you jump into breakfast and lunch at the same time, or did you start with breakfast only?
No, it was breakfast and lunch. It was meant to be the school day when our kids were in school, because we were going to be working there. And so we intentionally set those hours, and the menu kind of, again, when we sat down, it was very easy to come up with a menu of items of things that we like to eat. And, back in 2012, there were a lot less, grab and go options, or even kind of like quicker, there was the white napkin, white tablecloth, full service restaurants. And then there were your, fast food, but there was very little in the middle. Now that's not the case. There's tons of that. And they may have existed, but they weren't existing in the suburbs where we were living.
Right. I mean, New York, obviously, in that time period, I think about New York and, Sweet Green was probably in New York at that time. And the fast casual trend in 2010, 11, 12, it really took off. So were you guys seeing that and thinking to yourself, oh, we got to jump on this fast casual trend? Or were you not even
We were in a silo. We were literally in a silo. We had no idea that was happening.
No, we had no idea. I mean, I remember I went to NYU, so I remember the first Chopped, I remember experiencing food. Old lady flex. I remember experiencing food as a consumer. That's all we knew. And that's all we knew, that as consumers, there was something missing for us, that there were diners, but we always ate too many fries and we always felt a little heavy, that was heavy. And we wanted a place that wasn't singularly focused too. We definitely knew that it wasn't going to be a sushi place or a pizza place or tacos. It would be something for everyone. And we knew what was missing as moms and partners and friends and women in town, that we just wanted somewhere to go that felt warm. That was the other piece, was like that warmth of hospitality had kind of missed us as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your earlier question too, we did start 7 to 3 because we could then go to the bus and pick up the kids. Sure.
Yeah. Well, so many people, I've talked to countless people who were not restaurateurs before becoming restaurateurs. And it's the restaurant industry is no joke. I mean, if you don't know what you're getting into, it will surprise you how hard this industry is. People tend to romanticize the idea of owning a restaurant, and then it hits them in the face. Was that your experience? What was the experience of having a restaurant?
Well, we didn't call it a restaurant for a good year, which helped. It helped. We were like, oh, it's just like
a takeout place.
Yeah, it's a little cafe. Yeah. We have coffee and stuff, and people are like, no, it's a full trifold menu with like 32 items. I think not knowing was a blessing, because if we knew what we knew today, we'd never do it. And I think the naivete, like I mentioned, of going into it was really a gift. It really is. It was like having a child in many ways. I'm sorry to be so feminine, but like it was very much like having, like, you don't know. Nobody tells you how terribly scary and awful it is either. They just tell you the wonderful things about it.
Right.
I will be writing a book one day about how terribly scary it is. No, but I think for us, it didn't hit us in the face immediately how hard it was financially, because we did open up quite strong. We were lucky in that way. But the ops of it, whatever that word meant, people were flying around the word ops. We were like, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I mean, to give you a small example, the first week we had been working on a net 30 with our granola, company that wait net 30 to get paid. And we thought it was so incredible that the cash register would just go all day. And we got the money the same day.
The credit card deposits came in every morning.
We were like, oh my God. So that first week we were in business, Dana was like, I guess this is for you and this is for me. And then she called me. I got home and I was like doing like you can't say Jay-Z.
No.
Okay. Well, I was doing a thing with the money and
Scrooge McDuck, if you will.
Yeah, it was a meme. It was a meme. Yeah. We were doing and it was probably like $500 too, just to be clear. Yeah. And Dana calls me and she goes, you have to bring it back. And I was like, why? She goes, I forgot. There's a thing called sales tax. So yeah.
Yeah, it was a learning curve then. So
I mean, the whole thing was,
long story.
Yeah, the whole thing was we were kind of like falling forward, but we didn't, I've met over the last decade or so many people who have started out with concepts that they're opening to open a bunch. And we didn't have that mindset. Yeah. We were never like, oh, we're going to open more than we were opening one. And if it worked, amazing. And we never, ever in our wildest dreams thought there would be more than one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell.
What was the evolution of the granola business then? I mean, did the food service element start to take over, or was granola always?
We couldn't do it.
We actually still had our contract manufacturer who was in New Jersey continue to make our granola for the first
9 months.
Yeah, because we didn't have the capacity, we didn't have the time to make the granola that we anticipated. Really the genesis behind us opening the place. So it was really interesting.
We couldn't come up for air. I mean, we were seeing, people would say, oh, how many covers did you do? We didn't know what that meant. We were like, I don't know, 300 people walked in. They were like, what? For breakfast and lunch in the suburbs? What are you talking about? And we were like, yeah, about 300 people today. And we couldn't come up for air in a wonderful way, but in a way where the granola, certainly the wholesale side just started to fade away. We realized if we ultimately got a chance to hand make our granola again in our Westport, Connecticut location and sell it at our location with those few hundred people coming in a day, we'd actually profit more as a company than going through all of the touch points of a wholesale business.
Yeah, once you pay the distributor and the contract manufacturer and then the market's buying it on promo, it just became, there was very little left at the end. And so we'd rather sell less with a higher margin and also be in control of the product. So
we shut it down. We shut down our wholesale side.
What was your customer base like before opening the food service part? Had you built a loyal granola customer and then were they disappointed when you shut it down? What was that like?
It's a little bit anonymous. You're selling through channels that where, yes, we did a lot of tastings back in the day. We'd be standing in, Fresh Market or Whole Foods or Stu Leonard's. And so we had interactions with customers and we certainly built a base of people who were consistently buying our product. But it wasn't the same as having an interaction with somebody inside of the restaurant. Right.
I would also add to what you're saying in that granola was a dime a dozen. Yeah. I mean, I'm not demeaning the category, but like when we would call on a buyer that you could hear eye rolls, like if there was an audible,
another granola.
So I think for us, I think it very quickly got absorbed by another company. That shelf space got absorbed. We did get a few emails, but we did market to people, same granola, new name. It's called the Granola Bar, and it's now available at our store in Westport. And so that was something, but it really didn't move our needle. We became really myopically focused actually on the restaurant that we now call the restaurant.
Got it. Okay, so then first restaurant, how long before you guys opened location number 2?
3 years.
Okay, so you guys had time to kind of get your feet on solid ground, learn what you were doing. At what point did you realize this is a scalable business and this is not going to be
just the second one? The second one, it opened with equal, if not more, fanfare than the original one, and people often would remark to us, oh, you'll never be able to do this again. This is a one-hit wonder. You live in the town, everyone. Your friends are the ones supporting you. So once we got up the courage and we felt that there really was something, some validity to our brand, and we opened the second location, and there was a line out the door and Julie was telling people to go to Chipotle because the line was too long. I think we realized that we had something. And also Greenwich being a little bit more in the spotlight in terms of customers. And, then we were getting approached by investors and people who wanted to help us expand the brand.
Yeah, I think being told early on, like, no, you'll never do this again. I mean, we were told we shouldn't do it before we did it.
Yeah, we were told not to open the first one.
I mean, we were told by every person who could get eye contact with us, like, this is dumb. Nobody's shy about that. And funny enough, no one in the restaurant business said that. People in finance said that. Mm-hmm. And so as we looked at the business, because we were not restaurateurs and we were business women in the city, we didn't look at it like we were selling, we were selling food. We were selling an experience more than food. And we felt that the brand could stand on its own 2 feet. And it did in Greenwich. I will say, though, early on in Westport, we knew it was going to be something when we looked around the room and knew nobody in the dining room. We knew no one. I looked at her, I said, it was like probably 3 weeks in. I said, do you know anyone today? And she's like, I don't. And so we realized, like, it wasn't just friends being nice. Like, we thought maybe this is just, we had a lot of imposter syndrome for a while. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it took us 3 years. We opened Greenwich, and that became our number one store actually quite quickly.
Well, and Westport and Greenwich are not so far from each other, so word of mouth could be...
Right, there was some brand recognition, absolutely.
There was.
Sure. Well, and to that point, and talking about fanfare, obviously 2013, going into, I guess, was 15, 16 when the second location opens. Obviously, social media is around, but it's before influencers. It's, there's no TikTok at this point. What was your marketing like?
Social media played... She has the greatest story. I'll let her tell. Okay. I mean, it's both our story, but you recall it quite well.
Well, no, I think it was early Instagram, and no, you actually saw the girls come in. You're talking about the girls.
You tell it. I forget the name of the school. It was a private school that it was like a train ride away, and
they saw somebody. Hot chocolate.
Yeah, somebody posted a picture of a drink, and they came in and. It was like middle of the day and these girls walk in with a uniform on and it was unrecognizable to us. Laurelton? Yeah, something
whatever.
Like anyway, we said, where are you guys coming from? And they said, they named their school. And they said, we saw it on Instagram. And so we hopped a train and then we took an Uber to your restaurant.
It was early TikTok energy, and I think, but the beauty of launching a business without it is we don't rely on it. It's icing on a cake. We don't look at it. Really is extra. We don't lean on it. We're not a social media brand. We're not a trendy brand in that way. I mean, we're super trendy and we're like the coolest thing ever, but especially in Woodbury, but we don't lean on that. We don't rely on it. And we don't think that that's like what we're about, right? We're about eye contact. We're about like really like maybe not physically touching our customers, but really being part of their life.
Okay. So obviously word of mouth being big then for you, but also, I think about even big chains. Like, for example, I think of Texas Roadhouse. I spent a lot of time with them recently, and they have people wholly committed in their restaurants to making contacts in the community, getting into schools and churches and organizations. I mean, imagine for you guys being able to tap into the mom community or, schools and teens. That must be a huge part of your marketing.
Huge. I mean, we're on the back of softball jerseys when we can. We're in the sports arenas locally.
And you walk in here December 27th. Everybody's on. All the college kids are home. I often get messages from friends like their child's home from college and their first request is, I got to go to Granola Bar.
It's home away from home. But I think that's because we are like, I mean, you're going to market this and great, but like we rarely say no. I mean, if there's a PTA asking for a gift card, go for it, because why would we say no? I mean, obviously budgets, but outside of that, really being enmeshed in the community, but it has to come naturally. These things have to be natural. And I think where our locations are, understanding how that consumer needs to park and walk and do, and it's just all part of it, right? How comfortable the seats are, how we make it stroller friendly or not stroller friendly, like all of it, is part of it. But yes, we love to be part of the community, and I hope we've done a good job doing that.
So then 9 locations open today, right?
8.
8 locations open today. So going from 2 then to 8, and I've had a lot of people tell me, 1 to 2 is totally different ballgame, but even 2 to 3, they say, is even harder because you're starting to stretch yourself. Tell me about how you guys have scaled your teams, your systems, your operations to handle 8 restaurants.
Yeah. Wow. It's so dynamic though. You know this. It's a living, breathing business. Like it's so interesting. By the way, it's in some ways
a lot of trial and error.
More interesting today. I think, look, we've realized over the last year, I know you might roll it, but like multi-unit operations is wholly different than even 1, 2, or 3. I think you can run 3, 4, even 5, maybe like in a concentric circle without thinking through a lot of multi-unit stuff and still be profitable enough. But right now we're really focused on becoming a multi-unit brand, right?
Yeah.
Like a Texas Roadhouse, like a Chili's, and behaving with systems that really make sense for scalability. So we've just hired a CEO about 6 months ago. That was a huge move. So his name's Rich. Hi, Rich. He's rooted in multi-unit. I mean, he's opened thousands of restaurants. And
he's written the systems and the playbook. So he just has the expertise that even though we grew up inside of this, we still don't have that same skill set.
Yeah,
sure.
It's really important to know what you don't know. And there's a director of operations, and then we have an executive chef and vice president, and then we have our GMs. And so that's really the crew. We have a CFO, and that's it. Our corporate's quite lean. That's
we're
strategy.
very nimble.
Yeah. We both work full time and
do a lot of different things, and we're still very much involved. But it's definitely helpful having a fresh set of eyes. Coupled with somebody who also has a ton of experience because they see things that we just can't see.
Yeah, I mean, the heart of the brand can take you so far. The multi-unit experience and the systems, it's so eye-opening and refreshing. And it gives you a sense of foundation where you no longer think it's a house of cards and 1 or 2 really bad moves, the whole thing could fall. It feels much more structured. I don't know if that answered your question, but I hope.
Oh, totally. Well, and it opens up another question along the lines of, founders. You mentioned that word heart. And I say this a lot, which is, founders are the beating heart of a restaurant. And it's really fascinating to look at even the major chains when the founder is still present. Something hits different with that chain. So the examples I give are Jersey Mike's and Raising Cane's. Yeah. These are 2 brands where their founder is still very present and CEO. And there's no secret as to why they're doing so well. They're making money hand over fist, right? So, which leads me to ask really for the 2 of you as founders, now that you've scaled, now that you have a CEO, how do you protect the passion, the vision that you guys have had for this thing for over a decade, but hand it off to other people who are kind of now in control of that?
Because it's not a handoff. It's a collaboration. It's a partnership because you have to find a CEO that respects and trusts us.
And won't make a move that could, impact or tarnish the brand and the work that Julie and I have put in and built, this business. So I think if, we had somebody come in from the outside and just,
I got this.
It's like, you guys go hang out, that's definitely not the case, down to the menu items.
Yeah, I think for us specifically, Rich has had his hat in the founder game. He has founded something and been entrepreneurial and been all chips at the table risk. And I think it's so hard. I mean, it's hard for Dana and I to even have friends anymore because we're the only ones that really understand how intense that is. And the fact that our CEO feels that for us and with us, he knows what's at risk. Yeah, I think there's a trust between us. And so, yes, we lean on him for the operations and the systems. And I really do believe you have to ask him. He leans on us for that, the palate, the heart, the customer, the market, the brand. We still embody all of that and will until someone tells us not to.
Sure. So getting to 8 restaurants then too, how did you finance that? Did you guys get investors? Did you finance with cash flow? What did that process look like?
Well, we started off, Julie and I, financed the first 2 ourselves. And then we took on some partners and some money right before we opened number 3 through 6. That partnership did not work out, but we were fortunate enough to find new amazing partners that have been with us now for the last 6 years. So it was a little, they've helped us with the expansion through their partnership. We've had cash flow. It's been a little bit of everything, but it has not been an easy journey. And we have kind of piecemealed this together. We had a pandemic thrown in there.
We've never been wealthy, meaning the company runs really well when we say no, when we thread the needle financially, when we are really scared. And I think there's never been a relief moment. There's never been a moment where we're like, oh, okay, now we have enough to just sit back and make a 3-year real estate plan. I'm like, what? I think for us, that's beautiful. That's lovely. That may work for a lot of companies, but really being nimble, being like working, being gritty, needing to work, like having to fight it out.
And also having the right
I like it.
And having the right partners.
I sickly like it.
Well, I think we've become so accustomed
to being
maneuvering like this that we wouldn't even know how to maneuver the other way. I think finding the right partners, because I think we could have found other money and other ways to grow, but maybe that came at a price that we weren't willing to sacrifice.
That's true.
Being with somebody who's saying, well, you have to open 10 a year. At any cost. We never wanted to be in that position.
And we also don't have partners in restaurant. They're in real estate. So it gives us new brain looking at real estate. It gives us the ability, the trust again to run our business. And there's really no like proverbial gun to our head to hit certain EBITDA to it's not private equity money. So it's not a thing for us we have to do this or we have to do this. It's still very entrepreneurial. It still feels very mom and pop.
Mm-hmm.
We got lucky.
Sure. Yeah. So to that point then, what's the goal? I mean, are you doing this one restaurant at a time, or do you have a sort of higher goal that you've set for yourselves to aspire to?
Well, I don't know that one restaurant at a time is, higher, our goal as founders may be a little different than our goal for the company.
Yeah.
Too, right? Those things bifurcate at a certain point and we're, we look great, but it's Botox, right? So I think at a certain point, for sure, it's going to be a handoff of a very structured, very operationally sound and very profitable company to a private equity firm to take it then to 150, 200 stores, which is what we see. We certainly see that. Whether or not we are doing it, I don't think we're doing it one at a time. No, we're getting to a place where the value of the company is reflective of where we see, the value really, and not giving that away until we're ready. And I think being less vulnerable when we go into that situation and having a better, more structured company.
Sure. All right. So taking a step back, thinking about this now 12 years in since you opened your first location, so much has changed in that time. And it's interesting because I think, especially in breakfast, breakfast tends to be a little bit driven by trends. You mentioned avocado toast earlier. That's now the butt of jokes, although arguably still pretty popular item, I imagine. But there's a lot of trends that come and go. Granola, obviously, talking about the people who rolled their eyes at you. How has this concept evolved, and how do you make sure you're taking advantage of the wants and needs of the customers without going wholesale too far into any particular trend that might go away?
Yeah, we're not trendy at all.
We're the consumers.
If we eat something and we think it's amazing, we'll be like, oh, let's think about it. For sure, we just added cottage cheese to our menu, but our best sellers
are the original
original, and they hit every time. And when we enter a new market, we're always shocked that it's the original menu items,
10 items
that are the big hitters. So, we watch what's going on. We tend not to stare or look too closely at what others are doing. I think our value, again, is not in being first to market with something incredibly trendy or exciting. It's in being your kitchen away from your home. It's in being that really comfortable place where every time you get the breakfast burrito, it's just as delicious and just as good. But how would you?
Yeah, I definitely don't think we're trendy. We do follow the trends. We're certainly, keeping each other, up to date with what our kids are.
Yeah.
We're sharing, we're very collaborative here. Even our staff members, our team members will come to us and say, hey, what about this? And, we're always open to new ideas, but it has to really sit comfortably and it can't feel super trendy for us to give it a check mark.
It's also the brand has a certain bullseye and it has to check off, right? Everything for the brand. And then also moving the ship is not so easy anymore, right? If we added, sweet potato pancakes and they're a huge hit and they're delicious, but we'll probably keep that on the menu for a while. And we're doing specials, but we don't go towards the shiny light too often unless we try something and it's just absolutely. I'm lying to you because we just tried something yesterday. It was it's such good. A 10 out of 10. We're we have to put that on the menu.
But it's not super.
It's not trendy. It's not really trendy. We're going to make it a trend.
It's just delicious.
Yeah.
Do you change out your menu pretty often? I mean, are you doing limited time offers and stuff like that?
No. We do it twice a year. We usually twice a year we change and update the menu.
But it's not. It's usually 90% of it sticks.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. What about headwinds then? You mentioned the pandemic. You went through that. Obviously, everybody went through that together. And obviously, the last 3 years post-pandemic have not been rosy either with labor, food costs, inflation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What are some of those headwinds that you have found have been the most challenging for you in the past couple of years?
You just named them.
Yeah.
I don't think
moving on.
Any of them. Yeah. Obviously, inflation has been incredibly challenging because, people are, we're always reluctant to, move a price take price. And, in fact, we just took price after a very long time of not taking price. And it always is uncomfortable. It's also then it's a necessity.
Your P&L is also a bit, off, right? Mm-hmm. We had amazing, same store sales year over year without taking price. That's really prideful. That's incredible. Yeah. And then you take price. You're okay, next year the numbers will look better, but we took price. But it's great. It's great to have the option to do that. We did it literally 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was incredible.
And some positives have helped us, such as the pandemic, which is negative, but in the positive sense, there are a lot more people work from home now. We'll go back to work. So in the suburbs, we have a ton of people who are, instead of spending money on their commute and then buying overpriced food, possibly in New York or whatever, they have a little bit extra discretionary income. And so we've been able to kind of maintain our customer base, which has been a positive. But the headwinds are, minimum wage just went up a week ago. It's these things are not going away. Electricity, our electricity utility bills are, out of control. It's a second rent.
Yeah.
So these are all headwinds and we just have to, keep chugging away and, hoping for the best.
And I think on the other side of headwinds is really expansion. Growth is not a strategy in and of itself. You must have food consistency, and we have a commissary model. So those are difficult things to understand and figure out, and it's never done, right? You're never done.
Right. Yeah. All right. So we're talking a week into 2025. Tell me what this year has in store for you guys. What do you see coming down the pike this year?
Oh, this is an exciting year.
This is a big year.
Okay.
Yeah, we're opening what we call our flagship Granola Bar on Madison Avenue between 42nd and 43rd. This big announcement. I just said it out loud.
Yeah. Exciting.
It's official now.
It's official. So
you got the scoop, Sam.
All right. Thank you. By the way, that's only a few blocks from NRN headquarters.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we're steps from Grand Central in a beautiful building, 330 Madison. So we'll be opening that hopefully in the next year. And we are launching a new brand in that building as well around the corner on East 43rd, which we won't give you the scoop on right now, but
okay.
It's very exciting. It's the 12 years of learning for Dana and I.
And it's kind of nice because now that we have Rich on board and we have a whole new ops team and, people who understand multi-unit, we're able to really, press on the creative side and get this new brand going without being distracted by what's going on the other side of things.
Rich will disagree.
Well, not knowing anything about that brand, what I see in you is something I see in so many founders, which is you guys got the itch to create again, right? You want to be creative and you want to create something again. So clearly you have that entrepreneurial drive kind of turning along.
Yeah, but real estate driven as well. I think as an amenity, I think breakfast and lunch tends to lean towards like amenity, right? We have a lot of landlords saying to us, can you amenitize our building? And so for this building and specifically, they asked for something and it then sparked us to say, wow, we've always that's a great idea, blah, blah, blah. And so, yes, whether or not this brand becomes the next sensation, I have a feeling it'll hit. We're really excited about it, but we're doing it as an amenity to the building and the surrounding area, but for this building specifically. But yeah, you're right. For sure, Dana tends to be a little more scared of that. Right? I mean, you've come over to my side, but I'm very excited to have creative moments like this. Although Granola Bar gets most of that creative energy as well. But yes, you're right. It's an adrenaline junkie business, but adrenaline can also be the worst.
Sure.
Bad for your P&L.
Exciting to watch. All right, last question to ask. We have a lot of founders who listen to this and a lot of emerging founders who are listening to this. What's your advice to anybody getting into this business in the early days? What you guys have learned over the last 10 to 15 years going through this business, what would your advice be to young leaders in the restaurant space?
I mean, our first gut is what we say to each other, which is stay small and keep it all for a long time. I think try to stay ownership, stay small and keep it all for as long as you can.
And maybe that, people can kind of reframe what the end goal is. Maybe staying small and keeping it all should be the end goal, right?
Yeah, I think this idea of growth and chasing is
getting more and being bigger and doing more things.
I don't love it for people.
We definitely, reminisce back on the simpler days of one or two, or just being, able to go back and forth. And if we wanted to make a change, it's very easy, and less people, managing of less people and things of that nature. Like those are at least the days that I miss.
Yeah, I think we had, one very profitable store. We had two very profitable stores. And that was never just okay. No one would ever say to you, and this is not on you, but no one would ever say to you, congratulations, it's great. It's always, what's next? What are you doing next? How much bigger? What's growth going to look like? So you get onto this train that I don't know is the right risk reward. You have to ask yourself. I mean,
there's a lot of sacrifice.
We met with Sandy Bell really early on in our life as restaurateurs. He came to Greenwich and he was like, don't ask yourself what's next. Ask yourself what you're willing to give up for what's next. And I think for us at the time, we were like, but it's really true. We sit here as, different people as we were when we started in our mid 30s, and our goals and what we want out of it are totally different. Yeah. So I don't know, trying to understand, do you want a 30-year career of this? Do you want to get out in 5 years? Do you want
to have something that you're going to, hold and run and manage over, the same 30 years, and it's just one, but you have a little bit more balance in your life.
Yeah, that would be our...
That's good advice. Julie and Dana of the Granola Bar. Guys, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
That was my interview with the Granola Bar's Julie Mountain and Dana Noorily. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 6 takeaways. My first takeaway is that the business you start is not always the business you will grow. Of course, Julie and Dana shared their origin story of 2010. They met via their daughter's school and a birthday party. They became friends and they decided to go into the granola business, started doing that in one of their kitchens before they realized they had to make this a professional enterprise. And so what do? They start a restaurant to have that commercial kitchen, essentially. And of course, now, the rest is history. It's fascinating because I'm sure they're not the only ones who go one direction only for their customers to steer them in an entirely different direction. For them, as they explained, they knew nothing about food service, about the restaurant industry. They knew nothing about having a front of house. They just wanted to make granola. But the space they designed and the menu they offered were resonated so well with their local community that they abandoned granola and got into restaurants. I think what's important to learn here is you should keep an open mind. When you first start a business as an entrepreneur, you don't know a lot of things. And of course, you don't even know there's going to be a customer for the business that you've started. You have to just kind of forge ahead and find out what the market's going to be like for your product. It will dictate what you do in the future. And in Julie and Dana's case, it dictated that they should be restaurateurs, not in the granola business. Keep an open mind as you grow your own business, because you might also do what they did, which is fall forward into becoming multi-unit operators. I think that was a great point that they talked about, falling forward, as in they had no goal to open 8 locations or more locations. All they wanted to do was make granola. Then all they wanted to do was make it out of a commercial kitchen. Then all they wanted to do was maybe open one more restaurant, and on and on and on. You too can fall forward, but you have to listen to your customer, follow the market, and figure out what your business is, even if that means changing it from what your original vision and original dream might have been. My second takeaway is to meet the hole in the market you're serving, not what's trending nationally. So when Julie and Dana became restaurateurs, this was right about the time that the fast casual industry was taking off all around the country. And it was especially taking off in New York City, where they once lived, but now they lived in the suburbs. So they did not see that fast casual explosion happening in New York and see a lot of those vibrant concepts that were taking root. All they saw was what people in Westport, Connecticut wanted, what their fellow moms wanted, their fellow parents. They saw that there was a breakfast and lunch opportunity. They saw that full service and fast food were thriving, but there was nothing really in the middle. Now, if they had paid more attention to what was going around the country, they might have designed their business in that way to fill the hole in the market that they see nationally. But I love that what they did instead was just, they kind of had blinders on and they saw what was right in front of them and they met the hole in that market and it worked. It resonated. There's a lesson here. In my 16 years covering the food service business, I've seen a lot of businesses come and go riding those trend waves. They see what's popular, what's taking off in another part of the country, and they think their community needs that too. But in reality, that rarely leads to very successful businesses. Instead, the brands that thrive in the restaurant industry are the ones that are meeting the demand of their local guest. They see what somebody in New York or Chicago or, in some rural part of the country, what the consumers are interested in. They meet that need. The consumers come in, embrace it, and make it successful, and then they grow from there. So definitely worth keeping in mind that you should not just follow trends, but instead meet that hole in the market that is right in front of you, your neighborhood, your community. My third takeaway is that if you don't lean on social media early on, then it's just icing on the cake as you grow. Julie and Dana shared how, in their early marketing was really word of mouth, that in 2013, when they launched the first Granola Bar, you didn't have TikTok. Instagram was pretty early on. This was not a marketing tool. It was really just a social tool. And obviously things have vastly changed by now. But they said, because they didn't rely on it early on for their marketing, they've not really needed it to be the basis of their marketing going forward. They continue to rely on word of mouth. They continue to do, more traditional marketing methods, certainly local store marketing, as they described, getting out in their community. I think that's interesting for restaurant operators today to make note of. Obviously, Instagram and TikTok are hugely important, and they should be a part of your marketing plans. But if you're just chasing trends on those platforms, or if you're just trying to go viral, or if you've built a business entirely around what influencers are doing or saying or what you're seeing on social, eventually that will come down and you'll rely too much on it. Let it be like Julia and Dana said, let social media only be the icing on your marketing cake. Don't let it be the entire basis for how you're marketing your business. My fourth takeaway is that with strategic hires, you can know what you don't know. So Julie and Dana recently brought on Rich Zub as CEO. He is an industry veteran with several other concepts under his belt, including having previously worked as an executive at Sweetgreen. And, Julie and Dana, they're the founders. They're very close to this business. They had the original vision, the original dream for what this could be. But they weren't restaurateurs, and especially they described as they got into multi-unit operations, they did not really know what they were doing, and they needed someone who did. And that was why Rich was hired to come in and do that. But I believe it was Julie who was saying that, you can know what you don't know, but you have to hire people around you who bring that knowledge, that expertise. If you're a founder of a business that's growing, or if you're a part of an emerging brand with a lot of potential, consider the fact that there's a lot you don't know. The restaurant business is hard, and multi-unit operations is even harder, and in some ways a totally different business than running a restaurant. What you need is people who know how to do it and who have experience doing it in order for you to do it well. My fifth takeaway is that sometimes real estate can dictate your entrepreneurial drive. I love the story of how the new location opening in Manhattan for the Granola Bar is going to have another restaurant next to it, part of the same business that Julie and Dana are developing. It didn't share details with me yet. I'm excited to hear more about it soon. But they made the point that their landlord there was interested in something else that could help monetize the space. And so they're going to come up with another business idea to help to do that. I'm sure this is not a rare thing to happen. Landlords, at the end of the day, their job is to make sure that customers are coming to their properties. And so they want to make some safe bets. They want to bring in businesses that are going to appeal to the people who are going to come and spend time at those businesses and on those properties. And in some cases, they might recruit those who are renting space and those business leaders who are a part of their development to help them do that. So say you have a restaurant that's very successful and you have a space next door, and you don't want to just go out and find any old brand. You want that person who's so successful with their other business to help you, again, monetize the space and bring people into that business. All of this really brings me to that idea of what Julie and Dana were explaining of how, your landlords want something out of you. They want you, again, monetize their space, monetize their real estate. And you, for those of you who are founders, you probably have that entrepreneurial drive to come up with something. You've done it once before. You can do it again. So really the takeaway here is work with your landlords. If your landlords are looking to fill space, maybe the person to fill it is you. And maybe it's not your existing business. Maybe it's something else entirely. But you have a knack for creating brands. You've done it once before. And especially if you have that idea knocking about in your head, maybe you should take a chance and work with your landlord on doing something else, especially if it's next door to your other business or a couple doors down. Your risk is low. You know the space. You are close to your other business. And you maybe should take a chance and try something new in order to help both yourself and your landlord. My sixth and final takeaway is that it's okay if your end goal is to stay small and keep it all. Again, that was a direct quote. I really love that. Julie, I believe, who said that, when you open a business, when you start a business, you don't always have this goal to open 100 of them and to become this massive success. Sometimes you open a business because, again, you fell forward into it and you don't necessarily know what you're doing. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes it might be better for you to maintain ownership, retain the ownership of your business, stay small, grow it as much as you can and as much as you can stretch yourself, and count that as a success. Julie and Dana are learning this in real time. They've brought on some financial partners. They've expanded to 8 locations with more on the horizon. They've decided to go that multi-unit operations route. But you can tell in this conversation that tension was there, whether or not that was ever what they should do, because that was never the goal. They never thought that they would get to this scale, but they have, and it's worked. But I love that their advice for fellow operators, for fellow founders, is to consider your goals and consider whether staying small might be better for you than to scale. Because again, if you retain that ownership of your business, if you stay small so that you can run your whole business, you could find great success in that. Personal fulfillment, of course, And as they mentioned, the great advice from longtime operator executive Sandy Beal, when you grow, you have to sacrifice something. So you have to start out and by asking yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice if the end goal here is 10 locations, 100 locations, or whatever? You will sacrifice something, whether that's, relationships, time, whatever it is, you're going to sacrifice something. And if that's not what you want to do, then again, consider staying small and keeping it all. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again, and talk to you next week.